Wall Street Journal editorial page here, Jonathan Lemire. I heard you talking about it a second ago, but Donald Trump afraid to debate.
Definitely.
And the Wall Street Journal asks a question, lead editorial. Why is Donald Trump afraid to debate? And they go through a series of things. But the bottom line is they conclude by saying Mr. Trump's advisors may be telling him he shouldn't appear unless he says something that hurts his legal defense, which of course he does but that's a sign of weakness, not strength. And he'll have to answer those questions eventually. What is the former president afraid of? Asks the Wall Street Journal editorial page.
Yeah, it's the right question. And obviously, it does a disservice to voters, Republican voters, to our democracy if he doesn't participate in these debates. He should, period, full stop. But right now, they're sending no signal that he will. He skipped the first debate. He showed no slippage in the polls. In fact, his lead has only grown. He is not going to participate next week, in partially because of a personal animosity he has against the Ronald Reagan Library, of all places. But now he's sending signals that he won't go to the third one, which is scheduled a month later. And some of his aides have raised the possibility, why do it at all? They feel like if he shows up, all he does is elevate those around him. He becomes subject to their attacks. They feel like he could get pulled to the right on certain issues, trying to out-conservative someone like a Mike Pence or a Governor DeSantis or whoever it might be. There remains the Chris Christie factor, where they're afraid of Christie going at him one-on-one, which is Christie has telegraphed saying that's what he's born to do at this moment. And we also should raise the possibility of Trump, were he to be the nominee, not participating in general election debates either. Remember what drama was around at 4 years ago. So none of this is good for the democracy, full stop. But also, it's not good, for these other candidates who try to take a swipe at him. And it does seem like Donald Trump, maybe it's an effort to not say something incriminating, although he does that anyway. It doesn't seem like he's going to participate. He feels like he can do a glide path to the nomination and start thinking about a general election stance with issues like abortion and visiting those auto workers next week.
Well, not only that, the Wall Street Journal suggests, and if you look at what happened last weekend, Willie, where you looked at him and he just got lost. He just blanked. And he couldn't even remember, one, who he was running against in 2024. And then, and I know it was almost 8 years ago. It was a long time ago. If you're we've all been around people with dementia, people getting older, people forgetting things.
Or just not knowing history.
Well, no, it's his history. So if his mind wasn't jumbled at that moment, he would remember that he ran against Hillary Clinton in 2016. But he couldn't remember who he ran against in 2016, so he just slid Obama in there. And he couldn't remember who he's running against in 2024. So what he did, he just slid Obama's name in there. It's just kind of a catch-all. So I guess if you start your career with a racist conspiracy theory about Obama, he's got that back there somewhere. So he's living somewhere in 2011. So I'll just say Obama's name. People seem to like that. But the Wall Street Journal editorial page actually suggests about as much, that maybe he's afraid he's just too old to do this. They write, why is Mr. Trump afraid to confront other Republicans without the aid of a teleprompter? Is he worried he'd look his age at 77 next to younger candidates? And you know what? I know for Donald, that line hurts, because he's seen the video of how addled he looked and how confused he looked and how shaken he looked last weekend when he couldn't even remember who he was running against. And now you've got the Wall Street Journal editorial page saying, hey, I guess this guy's, he's afraid he can't do this without a teleprompter, and he's too old, which I guess starts raising questions, Willie. Like, is this really who the Republicans, if they don't look at the 4 indictments and the stealing of the nuclear secrets and the stealing of war plans and the attempt to steal an election, like maybe the Wall Street Journal is suggesting, and I think they are, hey, there's a reason why Donald Trump is afraid to debate. Is it because He's afraid he's getting too old, and he may lose his mind like he did that night on stage when he thought he was running against Barack Obama. I mean, if you're debating somebody and you don't even know who you're running against in the general election, that could cause a problem. I'm not good at this politics thing, but that could cause a problem.
I think just throwing Obama out as a stand-in for all Democrats, I think that works. You know, it's hard to remember all the names of all the people you've run against.
So many of them.
Over the course of your career. Yeah, it's one thing to stand at a rally with a friendly crowd and to play the greatest hits, to get all the cheers, to have the music play you off the stage. It's another thing to stand on a stage and be under attack, although I guess it's an open question whether this field even would attack Donald Trump, given the reverence they've shown for him. But to be on a stage, on your feet, having to react and to answer criticism, to answer substantive questions from a moderator, that's probably not the best format for him. And as John says, he's looking at the polling, even inside places like Iowa, where he lost last time, and he's up by 25, 28, 30 points. New Hampshire, and of course the national polls that show him up 50 points. And if you're playing with that big a lead, why would you mess with that? So it sounds like maybe the Wall Street Journal is trying to bait Donald Trump into getting to one of the debates with the age question. But if you're advising Donald Trump and you're up by 50, why risk it?
Yeah. I mean, you know, but I guess you just say, I mean, these are perilous times we're living through, Mika. I mean, if you ask Donald Trump, we keep going in this direction, we may start World War II. Which, by the way, I'm glad Caddy's here. We can warn her family just to be prepared.
Caddy K might need to know about that.
Yeah.
John Paul Mary's here as well.